My name is Adi, and I came to planet Earth to assist with the process we call planetary ascension. Just like many of you, we came to this world on a big mission. This is a mission that really is unlike anything we have done before. This is really a mission of returning planet Earth, the entire Earth, assisting her to regain her rainbow light, her own Merkaba, her own rainbow body, and to assist her in becoming a complete world once again. A complete world, she tells me, is not a world that ends. It is a world in which all beings who are present in embodiment on a planet accomplish harmony within themselves. So harmony within the being. Now, what is harmony within the being? The best way to describe harmony within the being is to really imagine ourselves the way that we were created in our original blueprint, and that is to be rainbow beings ourselves. And so we are like miniature Earths. The way that harmony is achieved in our embodiment right now, it has to be the harmony between the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the etheric. Now, to get to that state, we simply need to rediscover the innocent heart within, the sacred heart, that portal of Christ consciousness within. Inside of us is this flame of divinity. You can call it the light of God. And it was reignited to a much brighter degree on the 23rd of May when we experienced this incredible collective baptism where our bodies, so matter, got baptized by the Holy Spirit of Divine Mother, and especially with the light of the Buddha and the Taurus and Christ. So that was a huge event. It was really groundbreaking, and our lives should be changing now. We should be seeing the big changes in our consciousness, and not only in the consciousness of those who already are awake and aware, but also of those who really are awakening. Basically, the Earth moved completely to a new time and space. This really also happened on the 555 portal, where we opened a stargate and we changed the coordinates of the Earth. It's really like the Earth is a spaceship and we simply change our location. So that exposes us to whole new consciousness, to whole new light. As you know, light is information. And so that gives us a new time and space within which we can create miracles. We are here to actually create miracles, and we are here as a team. So no one ever comes to planet Earth from other dimensions or other galaxies and universes thinking, I'm going to do this alone. It always is a team, just like Jesus had 12 disciples. So here we are with a big team, and we came here to collaborate, to harmonize life force within ourselves, but also to harmonize life force within the Earth, to recreate this ancient grid. It really is this ancient grid, but also a new grid, and we are reactivating the flow of life force within the Earth so that she can again be part of this magnetic web of life that connects everything together in the web of life of creation. That way we will have again access to other dimensions and other star systems and other planets just like we used to. So that's a big job. So first of all, it always is a personal journey of realignment, but also as a collective one. Now, what is really happening on planet Earth right now is that as we are in this new time and space, we can use these amazing opportunities to move planet Earth more and more towards her magnetic alignment. And it is June 6th today. So what will be happening next? We are accelerating our evolution here. And that is through what we have done here as humans, but also through the assistance that we have from all the different beings, not only galactic beings, but also the beings of creation. So we will go through several opportunities. The thing with opportunities such as, we have the solar eclipse on the 10th of June. We have solar solstice on the 21st of June. And then we will have August. All of August will be just unbelievable blasts of galactic and solar light. And that can lift us up even higher on this planetary evolution or expansion of the fabric of reality. And then we will have a few months until February 2022, when I believe the new Earth will be anchored as our reality. And so how do we use these opportunities? We need to really participate in them, because when we get the opportunity, it's like, the universe is giving us the magic wand, but the magic wand means nothing unless we use the magic wand. So how do we use the magic wand? I would like to invite you to participate in the event that Patricia Cota Robles is holding on August 14. It's August 14 until August 19th. If you go to her website, eraofpeace.org, or just Google Patricia Cota Robles. Maybe you participated last year in the planetary reboot. We have 46,000 people join us. So this year, if it could be more, because the more is of course better in terms of how many people can be aligned in the same breath, in the same frequency, in the same intent. This could be, the really turning and tipping point for planet Earth in the ascension process. Of course, let us wave our magic wands together, and if we have 100,000 people doing that, that makes a big difference. As we have these amazing opportunities, it is important to work, of course, with Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is something that was really misunderstood by many on this planet, and especially because it was associated mainly with religions and Jesus. But Jesus was the embodiment of Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is the intelligence of creation that is always the portal to source, the portal to what we would call God, the portal to Shiva. And to explain Christ consciousness, we can look at Taoism, that I think has the best explanation of Christ consciousness, which is the absolute neutrality of an observer, and yet it is the absolute presence of love. So when we observe what seems to be reality, we only see everything through the eyes of Source, which only sees perfection, which only sees love, which only sees light. Beyond all appearances is only the light of God. Now, that is not a state that is natural to humans, so definitely it takes, spiritual evolution on a personal level and certain initiations to get to that place. But it is possible. I had an experience in my past lifetime where I was a monk, and I was a Tibetan monk, and I was in a state of this consciousness that was completely just seeing the light and no appearances. And my memory is that I was chased by two, let's call it, agents, and I believe they were Chinese, but I don't want to say that. And they put two guns to my head, and I was just on my knees, and I went into that state of, I know exactly that all is really just an appearance. It's really not real, but beyond all is the light of God. And I focused on the light of God, and I think I got shot because all I know is that all I could see was the light of God, but there was no fear, there was no panic, there was no doubt, there was only this affirmation that all is light of God. And in that moment, everything exploded and it was just light of God. So that kind of consciousness where we just know all is the light of God, no matter what we see. Another experience of Christ consciousness that I had, which is maybe useful to share, is when Christ took me to a place where I would be seeing a beggar. So this was in San Francisco, and I was a homeless person begging. But Christ asked me to look at this situation through the eyes of Source. And through the eyes of Source, there is no beggar, there is no poverty. There is only the light of God, and everyone is wealthy and thriving. And so again, the appearances are not real, and beyond all is God thriving. Now, that doesn't mean that we do not have compassion, and it doesn't mean that we don't take any action in this world, but the action has to come from a very specific place. And that, again, is a lesson that I learned from Divine Mother, when she was trying to teach me how to really use the art of creation correctly. So normally in this world, as a human being, when you see suffering, you feel sad, angry, you of course feel immense empathy, and you could go even into rage, and you could go into helplessness. But that is not the way to create. So the way to create, and this was again an experience with Divine Mother, as she was trying to teach me, so she always would use situations, and she would have me face the suffering of baby elephants. Now, normally we would go into this deep sadness if you see the suffering of animals or the suffering of children, and any suffering, right? You go into like this place of extreme pain, actually. But she said that pain does not create that which is needed. She said when you see something like the suffering of the baby elephants that she asked me to witness, then you use that instantaneously, without any delay, to go into the bottom of your heart where you have your sacred power of creation. And instead of paying any attention to what you just saw, you take it as instantaneous impulse to create from that heart which is neutral, without resistance, without pain, without sadness, without anger. You just go into the neutral heart and you create something like, I love when all animals in this world thrive. But it's not based in the opposite of anything. So it is creating without duality. It is creating without first feeling what I hate and then creating what I love. There is no hate for the suffering. So instead of hating suffering, we go straight into love. So love is the Christ consciousness within us. It only sees love, it only knows love, it only is love, and it is fearless. It is completely the absence of any fear, which means it does not fear death. It does not even fear suffering, because none of that is real. And I think that's how the story of the crucifixion kind of, even if it is a myth, it helps us understand that even in the moment of, pain and crucifixion, Christ would say, forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they are doing, something like that, right? Because he would not be feeling the pain of it and see through the illusion of that suffering too. So that is mastery. This is actually really big, because what's happening on planet Earth is that we are stepping into a whole new world in which we all must understand life force. We are stepping into a whole new world in which we must understand how creation works. This is something that was really lost in thousands, if not millions of years on planet Earth. This is a really big story, and understanding life force is the key. Life force flows from source, and it is available for all beings to create with. Now, creation happens when life force flows into our crown, even if we are in different embodiments, even if we are etheric and we are not physical. Life force will always flow into the crown of a being, and then mixes in that sacred heart with the essence of the being, and then it is transmitted into all directions throughout the web of life. Now, if the being has an open crown fully, then it receives fullness of life force. If the being is contracted by certain states of emotional disharmony, like it is on planet Earth, then the being will not receive the fullness of life force. And that is not a punishment, but it is just simply the physics of creation. So imagine if you feel fear. Of course, fear is not at all adequate response to life, because there is nothing to fear in the truth of creation. And so fear would make our funnel through which life force comes much narrower. Now that would create tension and suffering in our life, but it is not a punishment. It is just that we didn't open up fully. The way to open up fully to source is to have a completely open sacred heart. Now, this is beyond the heart chakra. It is our sacred, innocent heart. It is the heart that is free of all karma. And karma is really whenever we use life force incorrectly, even if it was just 1% of it, it created something that we can refer to as a miscreation. It was not aligned with the original blueprint, which is always create more of perfection and always be creative so that all can benefit from whatever you are creating, so no one suffers. But if we created something that created suffering for us or others, consciously or unconsciously, that creates this blockage. So the life force now looks like the serpent of darkness instead of the serpent of light. The serpent of darkness is just our life force, which always looks like a serpent, and it lost. She lost her light because of how we used her. And so we all need to now deal with the serpent of darkness that we have within, and that can be from lifetimes, right? And so how do we transmute? Everything is about transmutation. And so we need to now transmute whatever we miscreated throughout our, all many lifetimes and all many dimensions. So transmuting life force back into her light, back into her neutrality, because life force is neutral, and yet she's magnetically designed, ideally, to create love. More of love, more of beauty, more of harmony, more of peace, more of thriving. So that is the correct use of life force. And ideally, we want to always be using life force correctly. Now, the most sticky place on planet Earth where life force was not fully acknowledged and used correctly is our sexuality. And this goes back to Mu, and that's a memory that I have, when there were different types of beings on planet Earth. Some of them were already in human form, and some of them were still in the very etheric form, very connected to the element of water, to our mother element. And as these beings, we would have different consciousness, and that, I think, led to a lot of suffering on planet Earth, because there were beings here who didn't have high consciousness, and they didn't feel oneness with life. They didn't also understand life force, and they were misusing sexuality, and they felt lustful after the human body, or even the body of these more etheric beings that we would call maybe mermaids or water beings. So when we were there, this is millions of years of evolution or devolution. Sexual energy, as it was misunderstood and misused, created, I would think, the most karma for this planet. And I have memories of not only Mu, but also moving forward to the end of Atlantis. So I only remember the end of Atlantis. And the end of Atlantis came also through the misuse of life force in terms of sexual energy. So you can imagine that humanity, we've had millions of years of misuse of sexual energy. Sexual energy is a very interesting topic, and I only share what Divine Mother shares with me. So this is how she explains it. When we were created as the original blueprint of a being, we had that life force running through the entire etheric body. So that would be the beings in Mu. They lived in incredible reverence for the spirit, which they called Tewa, and they understood that there is only one thing to be really fully aware of, and that is the flow of life force. This spirit, Tewa, which we would maybe call source, was sending constantly life force, which looked like rainbow light. That's why the Aboriginals, who are actually one of the original people of Mu, have this incredible reverence for the rainbow serpent of creation. So Tewa would be sending this beautiful life force in the form of rainbow light, and the beings would just absorb it and circulate it through the entire etheric body, which would become more and more physical at that point, but still it would flow. It would be in the flow, and this flow of life force, which would come not only from Tewa but also from the earth, would look like the toroid. So the being would be in this perfect shape of the sacred apple, the toroidal shape, where the energy goes in, flows through the spinal cord, goes up through the crown, and then comes back down again and circulates and circulates. So that's the perfect way of existing. Now, the feeling of this life force flowing through the being at this level would be orgasmic. Now, as humans, at this point, we think orgasm is something sexual. But to these beings in Mu, it had nothing to do with sex. And the way that I perceive it, sex was not even a thing. It was all about merging light, exchanging light, loving each other, but loving all that is the same way. And so this flow felt like a constant state of orgasmic explosions. But that was life force flowing through us. So imagine what happens when you constantly feel like orgasmic, right? It's beautiful, it's amazing. You are constantly creating. You are just so eager to express this amazing life force flowing through you, which has nothing to do with your genitals. So that was the original blueprint. Now, what happened later, of course, through different beings coming to planet Earth and not understanding how this works and suddenly feeling very localized with this life force, the body of those beings could only feel this immensity of life force in the genitals. And they realized that, okay, it feels really good when you rub this, when you touch this. And so it became very addictive. And they didn't understand why they feel the arousal. They didn't understand why they want to be grabbing and touching and rubbing and who knows what. But it's like the most misunderstood thing at that point is sexuality. Because it is so localized and it is so attached to the physical body, instead of understanding how actually it is an etheric experience that has nothing to do with any body parts, and yet we can absolutely now, as we are in these like denser dream bodies, we can understand how this flows. And especially for women, as we are the carriers of this rainbow serpent of creation within our bodies, within our body parts like our genitals and our womb, and how this energy is so creative, but it needs to flow. It needs to flow up, 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 up. And it cannot be that we just localize it or objectify it or make it conditional and make it something that only happens when we have sex. So humanity got completely trapped misunderstanding sexual energy. So now we have industries like porn and prostitution and, horrible things happen to children because we have such a big addiction to something that we misunderstood. It makes sense when you think about it. It's as if we are blind and we are touching a little bit of life force, just 1% of it, and we think, oh, this is what it is, it's sex, we need to have sex. But actually, no, we need to understand the big picture. Take the blindfold off and realize, and that's why these mystics, and the yogis would be celibate, because they could run this ecstatic energy and be constantly in bliss, constantly in a way orgasmic, but understand that they are creative beings. So creating. And we didn't come here just to have children, right? So when you have yogis like Yogananda's parents, they were yogis of Lahiri Mahashaya, they would only have sex when they wanted to create children. And the rest of the time, you just run your energy and use it as a creative life force. And it doesn't mean that we should not be having sex, but we need to take away this, focus on body parts. We have to understand that when two beings activate that life force on their own, then they can come together to celebrate the goddess by merging and shining their rainbow light and making it bigger, multiply it. So that is really what we are stepping into, is understanding life force, understanding how creation happens. What is happening that we can do right now? So I would think the most important thing we can do right now is step number 1, start to work with our own life force, learn how to create from the bottom of the heart, from Christ consciousness. Also to activate our light bodies. So if you would like to activate your light body, then our group runs free classes And you can just contact me through our website, greentara.guru, where we activate the light body. It is amazing because what we are doing is that we are using sound of creation to activate the different light body centers to create this, what we could call light body, or the body of angels, or the body of Venetian beings. So we are bringing tones and colors into the light body. So we can do that. That's really important to be in a more solid space. And also we will be doing a water activation event, which will take place on June 10th. Again, you can register on our website. And why doing water activation? Water is the body of the Elohim of creation that created life on earth. And many of us came here to planet Earth with her. Now, I remember coming to planet Earth with her and creating life with her. And just like you, I'm sure, are the ones who came with her, then we are the original creators of life on planet Earth. For us, it is now important to reconnect with the consciousness of water, because she is this quantum computer that is not only here on planet Earth, but she is a cosmic creator being. And she told me that if we can get together, enough of us, and work with her in a relationship, not only that we take the codes from her and drink spring water and reestablish memories within us and recreate our DNA the way it should be, which is full remembrance, continuity of all lifetimes, knowing creation, but also if we can give love to her, we need to chant love to her, bring our own vibration to her, to activate this field around the earth through the waters so that the entire earth regains the planetary field of magnetic love. And that is our key. So definitely, guys, if you feel inspired, then join us for all these amazing events. Just go to our website, and I hope that we can collaborate together, and I look forward to it. Thank you so much for all that you do.